this one, this is really cool. And this isn't even one of the big ones. Good morning. Welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. This is one of those times where I don't think the camera's picking up the bees. At least not with the microphone. Let's see if we can get them with the lens. Those are all honeybees. We keep bees and very likely those are our bees. These guys are up early. There's a honeybee in that squash flower too, doing her thing. You can probably see back there that the loofah is growing down kind of like a curtain. I did trim it off up here, mostly because I have this rose plant that I want to make sure gets enough airflow and sunlight. There's also this tomato plant over here that was one of my seedlings that looks like it may have been a Super Sweet 100. I got things a little bit mixed up and I couldn't remember what this was, but that is what I think this is, so that's cool. I do have my larger harvest basket today, so we'll see. It was actually last night, that I was able to get a good 2 hours of gardening in, and it was necessary. So this here is our raised bed garden. Well, I have quite a few raised bed gardens at this point, but this is the original raised bed garden to our homestead. These particular beds have been here for many, many years. These were grown in by the previous owner of this farm. This project is going really, really well. What I am noticing is something that I don't think I had considered before, that when you grow a plant like this vertically, you're really only focusing on the main stem. The plant is going to put off side shoots and still grow pretty bushy and pretty dense. So in order to free things up and create more airflow, mostly for this melon over here, and we'll talk about that in just a second, but I did have to cut off some of the potential fruiting branches, and so that's a little bit sad, but this is also really, really cool. I see no signs of disease, no signs of bugs. It's been a pretty dry week as far as rain goes, but I did run the sprinklers, so these guys did get some overhead water and they look really good, and we are starting to get little fruit. So this is a white patty pan. I love these guys, and you can probably tell behind it I'm growing a yellow variety too. It's insane to me how many bees are out this morning. Look at them. They're not all honeybees. A lot of them are. I can hear the difference though in their buzzing, that there's different types. But this one is a yellow patty pan. It's got some really cool green streaking on the back of it. As far as patty pans go, this is probably as big as I would want to harvest it and eat it. Past a certain point, they really lose a lot of tenderness. The seeds start to grow kind of big and they're a little bit less palatable. Yesterday when I was pruning up the squash, I did have to kind of sacrifice some little baby squash. I accidentally left them out here, but these are edible as well. And there's a bunch, so you can see a younger one here, and then look at this little tiny. Isn't that awesome? There's a whole bunch on here. Right next to it, I have this melon, and this melon is one of the reasons why I wanted to grow the squash like this, because I knew that this melon was going to get big and it was going to want to ramble, and that this 4x4 bed, it's fine for the root system, but for the foliage, not necessarily. This melon gets really big when they are mature, and so it's not exactly the best type to trellis. Although if you wanted to trellis a big melon, you could. You would just need to make sure that when the melons were developing, you put them in like a melon hammock and had a really strong trellis in order to not have breakage of the plant and loss of those fruit. But in this situation, what we're doing is pruning up these plants so that the melon has a chance to ramble, and it was a little bit kind of curled up over here, and I did lay these vines out yesterday, and so when the sun comes out today, all these leaves that are kind of laying over, they will reorient themselves. I have been seeing a lot of male flowers on this plant, and it looks like the females are not far away. Can you see the tiny little immature baby melon down here? It'll be a couple days before that opens. I am noticing some evidence of something munching at this melon plant. We have seen rabbits in the garden, so that's my guess as to what that is. See, it's just gnawed right off. This is the sign in my garden if you've never noticed it before. Truer words were never spoken. I came in and pruned these okra plants in a similar way for the melon so they could grow underneath and ramble. And once these okra get taller, there'll be a lot more sunlight under here for the melon. And we are getting some okra. So real funny thing that I noticed about this okra. So I planted this from seed that I saved myself. I grew 2 different types of okra in my greenhouse last year. There was a type called Okinawa Pink and there was a type called Alabama Red. And I saved an Okinawa Pink pod back in order to recoup my seed stash. And what we got is actually a hybrid of those 2. So Okinawa Pink, when it grows, it doesn't have these ribs on it. Can you see these like lines and streaks? That is what the Alabama Red kind of looks like, although a lot more pronounced, a lot more blocky. This is definitely a combination of the 2. This is a lot more stubby like the Alabama Red, but it has some of the color of the Okinawa Pink. It's smooth like the Okinawa Pink. The Alabama Red does have little spiny bits on the ribs. So this is actually, like, it's not upsetting to me at all. This is really cool. When you harvest okra, it is best to have some sort of pruning device to get them off, but that works. I film my garden tours most often in the mornings, and I never am out of bed this early, and so we're pre-coffee. So pruning device, pruning shears. Some words that come out of my mouth might be a little strange. There's one more okra to get over here. The plant back here was a volunteer from an okra that I grew in this bed last year, and it was an Alabama Red. It is finally starting to put on some buds. There were no other okra plants nearby, so that one should have bred true, so we'll see. Now the garden does get kind of crazy at this point. I have started to work on clearing things up on the other side, so I'll show you how I've been getting over there. There is a walkway here. You just can't really tell. So what I've been doing is breaking one of the golden rules of gardening. I've been stepping in my bed. Coming over here. Look at the zinnia from this angle. For some reason, basically all of my zinnia plants have decided that they want to stay rooted in the bed, but grow out into the walkway. I can't really be mad. Look at them. So you'll notice that there's not a lot of honeybees on the zinnia. The honeybees are elsewhere. There are quite a few flowers that just are not accessible to certain pollinators. Things like zinnia appeal more to things that have like a longer proboscis or longer tongue. So we do see a lot of butterflies and we do see a lot of hummingbirds on these zinnia. It's just not time to wake up for them yet. They're a little bit like me, not morning people. So right here is where I had grown quite a lot of dill earlier in the year. And the whole reason that I grew it was so I could leave it and let it go to seed. And you can probably see there are a ton of seeds down here. And that was really the goal. I want to be able to essentially have dill coming back on its own perpetually. So far it's working. Dill is my favorite herb, and it actually is relatively frost tolerant. So we've got some little baby dill plants down here that are the next generation of the dill plants that were here, and this is exactly what I hoped for. Now, because these little plants were pretty shaded before I went ahead and took all these big plants out, I need to be mindful that they will be receiving a lot more sun and airflow now, and I might have to come in and hand water this bed so that these little plants don't dry out. Next to those, I do have this bed of walking onions, and these guys don't look super hot right now, but I think that this is relatively normal. So with these perennial type onions, they've died back here, but the bulbs are still living. See that? Got a nice bulb with a nice root system. These will probably do what this little guy's doing here, put up some new greens. There might even be enough time in the season for them to put on new bulblets. And I might actually decide to come through here at a certain point before the end of the season and actually harvest a few of the in-ground bulbs. With this type of onion, it's really cool. They put up a center stalk, and on the end of that stalk is another cluster of onions, essentially. So we can harvest the bigger bulbs down below and put that stalk, the end of the stalk, the little bulblets, in the planting hole where we took out the big onions, and they'll regrow from that just perpetually. The whole goal with these was to get them established this year, and then of course I let the grass grow a lot in this bed. I did have it mulched, but it was mulched with a local mulch that probably had a lot of grass seed in it. This is actually not grass. That's oregano, and that comes from right here. So obviously I haven't made it over here to start cleaning this up, but we do have oregano. It is flowering. One of my subscribers told me that you can actually use the flowers as a tea. I think I'm gonna do that soon because that sounds lovely. Over here, all the tomatoes that you see were volunteers. I did not plant tomatoes over here intentionally. And actually a couple days ago, I came through here and harvested quite a bit. I think it was around 7 cups of tomatoes. See, there's one down there. These tomatoes, I mean, it's the kind of thing where if I were to literally pick every single one of them, we would be out here for several hours. So I'm not going to be doing that today, but it's a project to get done before this weekend. We are getting some rain this weekend, and yellow-skinned tomatoes tend to crack when they get a good bit of rain. As I mentioned, we didn't really get any rain this week, and so the rain for these guys will have been a little bit inconsistent, which can contribute to some cracking. So I'll make sure to get another good harvest of these before the weekend. So right now, Jackie is just sitting in the bed. Are you eating grass? Is your grass good? You had a funny look on your face. You're so cute. So I did have quite a few Kalima bush bean plants in here and some zinnia back there, and I actually cut these down. I took a picture, and with the plants that did have some substance to them, it was easy to cut them up into little pieces and lay them down into the bed. And what this is going to accomplish is the plants are going to break down pretty quickly and feed the soil, and that's what I like to do most of the time. It helps me spend a lot less on things like fertilizers and soil amendments and things, and it's a good way to just kind of recycle the nutrients from the plants that are coming out. The reason that the zinnias came out along with the beans is they kind of looked like the beans. They looked like they were suffering a little bit. They probably were getting quite shaded by the loofah that's up here and then the sunflowers, and so what I plan to put in here is actually some root vegetables. I think I'm going to put like a whole row here of turnips. I guess it'll be more like a whole block of turnips because they'll probably be every 4 or 5 inches in here all the way down. But I need to procure some chicken wire so I can keep the kitties out of the bed. I've gotten questions before about how you keep the cats out of the garden and from using the beds as a bathroom, and I haven't been able to. They do have their favorite spots, and where the soil isn't super loose right there, I did pack it down a little bit, that's not one of their favorite things. But when we go to plant in here, I really don't want them stepping on my seedlings and things, so I'm going to be covering this with kind of like a hoop house, essentially, to keep you and the birds out. It'll be good. All right, so over here I have, this is a cherry tree. This is a Romeo cherry tree, and his beloved Juliet is not doing so great. These trees were transplanted in here this year, and this one is growing some new foliage. It's just suffering. Now I will say that I did not pick the flowers off of this particular tree this year, so it did put some energy in trying to produce fruit. No. So this tree had its energy resources working towards something that really wasn't going to be productive for it, while this tree didn't flower at all. It was focusing on root development. It's a lot bigger. When they came to me, they were the same size. Listen, sir, you be good. But back here we have a tomato jungle, which I didn't plant at all. Most of these are those yellow tomatoes too. And I was in here the other day looking at the grapes. We can probably see it better from this side. I saw that we had a different volunteer than we normally see. Looky there. This is a blue cream berry. And I have some of these growing in the greenhouse, but they're not doing half as well. So I'm grateful. Look at them. Can you see all the yellow down there? There's a whole bunch. I think mostly over here it's the yellow currant tomato. This guy. But it's kind of nice to see something else for a change. See this blue cream berry? This was grown on the trellis here last year. It's a good tomato. It's sweet. It's a little bit more watery in flavor than this one, the yellow currant. This one has a huge punch of flavor. Like it blows essentially all cherry tomatoes out of the water. The only other one that comes close is the super sweet 100. Oh look, strawberries. That's funny. Speaking of strawberries, here's the back part of the garden, the strawberry bed. I've been basically not trying to hunt strawberries in here. These are ever-bearing strawberries, but I have found that they do peter out towards the end of the season. So whatever strawberries they put on, I guess the bunnies can have them. So a lot of the kids' garden, well, not a lot of it, I would say maybe about 30% of it is basically gone by. Levi set a fire, I guess, in the burn barrel. But this is what happens with cucumbers eventually. Where the cucumbers have gone by, they do still have quite a few tomatoes, and they've got a lot of peppers. They haven't really been letting these get very big before they eat them. And then the ground cherry beds are starting to really pick up and do well. So they've got things kind of coming in succession, which is really nice. I went inside and put my boots on so we could come back in the long grass to gaze at the pumpkin patch. And again, I haven't been out here since we were out here last week. I think I'm gonna leave the harvest basket right here. Oh, do you see it? Look at this huge pumpkin. Huge pumpkin. That's the one that I saw from afar. Look, and then I bent down and looked over and saw that one over there. And over here, there's another big one. And that's just in this like 8-foot radius. This pumpkin is ready, you guys. Can you see how I'm putting my fingernail on the rind and it's not really leaving an impression? I'm gonna get this. Look right there. Can you see that one? It's happening. There's one there. Ugh. And this isn't even one of the big ones. So when it comes to storage for things like squash, it's ideal if you can wait to harvest them until their stem starts to turn brown, or ideally fully turns brown. And so this one I actually don't plan to store. We're gonna eat this one really soon. So that was really exciting. I do have a zucchini plant that I would like to try to get to. Eventually I may lose the zucchini plant in here. This is it. I think I see a flash of white down in there. I'm trying not to crush the pumpkin vine. Well, these are the size of small children. Pretty good. Can you guys see the baby squash bugs on that one? See, the squash bugs are here. These are squash bug eggs. Because I see them and I'm right here, I will brush them off. But with a squash patch like this, like, there's only gonna be so much we can do. Okay, what I thought was one giant one was just two good-sized ones. I think we're good for now. I think I need to preserve some large zucchini today. Down here is the growth stake for the pumpkin. I don't have any hands left in order to move it, but it's right there, and the end of the pumpkin is right here. I'm gonna have to come back for the pumpkin. All right, I unloaded some of the big squash over here because our basket can't handle it. But hello, welcome to the greenhouse. So if you've been following the garden tours, you know that we've been dealing pretty badly with aphids. Now, I was going to take out this poor cucumber plant because it's absolutely infested, but it seems to be working as like a trap crop, and the tomatoes and things are actually doing much better than they've done all season long. Can you see how lush they are? I mean, their leaves aren't curled up. They're putting on new fruits. Can you see way up here? Like, these fruits were not here a couple weeks ago. There's actually a bunch of new fruits way up there. See, this here is a Dr. Witchy's, and we've got fruits all the way up here. So I've decided to leave that cucumber right where it's at. It is kind of an aphid farm at the moment, but for right now, it's taking the aphids' attention away from the plants that I really want to live and really want to harvest from, so I'm allowing it. This particular tomato is called an orange accordion. I think I might have two of them. Yeah, I think it's this plant and this plant are both the orange accordion, which I have not been able to harvest from at all this season. But as you can see, it's trying to put on some brand new fruit after being sick for most of the season. So I have hope. I do still have some measure of disease. It's gonna happen regardless, but they're looking good. Over here at the base of this trellis, I told y'all that I was going to be planting some beans. I did. These are yellow wax beans. I put them in, I think it was Thursday or Friday last week. I film my garden tours on Wednesdays. This particular seed was sent to me by a viewer. I think it was either in 2020 or it was in 2021. So Marianne, these are your bean plants. And these are the original seed. I have saved seed back since, but I wanted to make sure that I used up some of that original seed since it is getting a little bit older, and then I can recoup my stock from these. Every time I crouch down, I notice new and different things. That is an interesting mushroom, isn't it? I always have a lot of fungi coming up in my garden beds. I hear that it's a good sign that you have good soil nutrition, or at least it's being worked on by the mycelium network. Down along this trellis, you can see I also have some green popping up. These are green arrow shelling peas. I tried to put them about every 3 inches, so we've got a little bit sprouting up here. The idea is that they'll grow taller as the tomatoes are really starting to die back and being defoliated. And so the peas will really just kind of take the place of the tomatoes on the trellis. So far so good. We do sometimes have issues with birds plucking out our seedlings, especially peas. But being grown here in the greenhouse, we do have a lot less bird pressure. The shade cloth plus the tomatoes are providing a lot of cover for them. They are getting as much light as they would need, but the birds are having a harder time finding them, at least for now. On this side, I wanted to show you that my favorite tomato, the Belgian Giant. They're doing well. They're almost to that purlin right there, which is probably about 7 feet up, maybe 7.5. We've been anxiously awaiting tomatoes that we have not gotten, mostly because it's been really hot. The tomatoes have been dropping their blossoms, but this truss looks really promising. Actually, each tomato has a pretty promising truss, about 5 feet up. We've got some little pepper plants down here that are doing decently, better than I thought they would. Some shishitos. These guys are Edgevarskis. These are smaller than really that they should be. Yellow Monster, and then some more Edgevarskis down here. So we'll see what kind of fruits that we get out of these. Being that they're grown in the greenhouse, these guys could make it past our first frost of the season when I've got the sides down, so we'll see. I'm planning on leaving this particular bed into the winter to see how far we can get these things growing. I guess provided that disease and bugs don't take them out. That's totally possible. We do still have a few tomatoes left that have this sooty mold on them. This is just a surface mold that washes off fine, so these guys are good. There's also quite a few peppers that need harvesting. See the red down there? See? A good amount of red pepper in here. And the reason that I picked them today is I plan on preserving them soon. With peppers, you can actually leave them on the plant a lot longer than you could leave something like a tomato and give yourself a little bit of wiggle room in order to preserve them or use them. But I'm gonna try to roast these. I kind of failed at roasting some peppers last week. Some of the pepper plants have successfully gotten taller than me. This pepper plant down here, which is a Tamdu jalapeno, that is almost at the purlin, and it's producing fruit way up here. It's pretty cool to see peppers at eye level, I'm not gonna lie. This big eggplant over here is a Chinese eggplant, and this is the biggest and most productive eggplant that I have ever grown. This seed was actually sent to me as part of a seed swap. This particular eggplant has a worm. I have been dealing with army worms in the greenhouse. Yet, we'll just cut that part out. Let's see. We've been able to get a sizable eggplant harvest every single week, which I'm not used to. You can see that this guy's put on a ton of flowers, and these are actually the first fruits that I've seen on this Black Beauty. So finally, we're starting to see fruits. That's good, it's been a while. The seed packet and tag that I have for this particular eggplant says Black Beauty. I'm not entirely sure that that is what this eggplant is, because it's just a little bit lighter than I'm used to seeing a Black Beauty eggplant, and it has these like white streaks and things in it. So I might have gotten, woo! It was a pepper in my ear, not a bug. But I could have gotten my seeds mixed up. I don't know, but I might pull this one today just to see what the seed development looks like on the inside, because I don't want this to get too far gone. It feels pretty good. It just has like the slightest bit of give. It's still pretty firm. Now I noticed just a couple of days ago that our tomatillos have really started to put on a second flush of blooms. We had really started to not harvest as many tomatillos all of a sudden, and then they started to push out all these new flowers. So look at them. We're gonna be having a lot of tomatillos really soon. I recently made some tomatillo salsa for the first time. Very good. A lot sweeter than I expected. Tomatillos in general are a lot sweeter than I expected. So out here on the lane, we're still growing a lot of grass, but we're growing a lot of food too. Our armpit melons are looking really good. They kind of stay green. Did you see that cucumber beetle? They kind of stay green for a long time, a lot like tomatoes do, where you feel like they're staying green forever. I've been watching this guy because I think that's the one that's going to ripen first. They do have disease, but really the goal with these is just seeds, and we're going to be able to get that. Got lots of these sandpapery type cucumbers. This is another thing that I have not really necessarily been harvesting outside of the garden tours. They are not growing super fast, so I'm actually grateful for that. Because of the sandpapery type texture of this cucumber, they're not my favorite thing, and so I'm not like eager for gobs and gobs of them. What I've been doing with these is actually fermenting them, and they're good that way. Behind that cucumber are chicken and dumplings cowpeas. Some of the pods are starting to change color. So we're getting closer to being able to harvest these for the peas that are inside. And see, we've got blooms. These guys will probably flower for another couple of months at least. You can see how they're kind of twisting around each other because they ran out of trellis. That's fine. Let's see, once these turn color, they're gonna be really easy to see and harvest. You can see the bumps. Those are the peas inside that are swelling. Oh, I'm so excited. I have a volunteer birdhouse gourd at the end here, and I told you that we would taste one this week, so I could remember exactly what it was like. So as you can see, we have a whole bunch. They're best when you want to eat them, eaten small so that they don't get super hard. At this point, this is probably too big. This one is definitely too big. This guy. Aren't they cute? I really like them. So let's go for this one. Small and tender. I remember now. So if any of you have ever tasted a cucamelon, that's the flavor. They are a lot like a cucamelon. So there's a little bit, it tastes like a cucumber, but there's a little bit of citrusy like afternote. Very, very good, very crunchy. Way better actually than that sandpaper type cucumber that I'm growing down there. And this birdhouse gourd plus that cucumber are they both volunteered. Let's go visit our poor, lonely, forgotten garden bed down at the end. Looks like she's doing good. Looks like our sad little melon last week has actually grown a little bit. I don't know if that's gonna produce this year, but I guess we'll see. So down here, these two plants are Kajari melons, and I have some sheep and goat panel that I plan to put here for a trellis. I have to do that by this time next week for sure, because they're starting to put out tendrils. The plants are just going to be healthier up on a trellis in this particular situation, because clearly I'm not that great at maintaining the grass on the side, and we want them to have good airflow. As you can see, we're starting to get some flowers. So melons are not that far away. Down here, these ones, I think they were called honey melons. These ones are a little further behind. So I guess it worked out that I grabbed the bigger harvest basket this week. We have a gorgeous assortment of colors from the different produce from around our farm, and I need to make some dinner plans for this week, because this is really how we make our dinner plans, based on what comes out of the garden. So we've got a lot of nightshades to work with, a lot of squash, so I gotta get to cooking. I'll see you guys again soon. Okay, I think we're done.